Hi.
Hello.
Look, two women in blazers in LA just having a talk about hormones and fertility. I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you.
Oh, Abby, I'm thrilled to be here.
There's so many things to start with. We're going to talk, of course, about your book, which is coming out in just a few months-ish, weeks-ish from now. It's almost down to the week mark, like 12-week mark. That's
I
pretty
know,
amazing.
I'm really excited.
I feel like when you think in trimesters, that's like soon.
Well, the fact that they have you nowadays start promoting a book 9 months before,
It's crazy.
and
Yeah,
the irony for a fertility book
I know.
to be released 9 months.
9 months. Wow.
I know, I really wasn't a fan of it, but
You got to do what you
in
got
the
to do.
publishing world, you just play the game a
I
little
get it.
bit. But now we're down to the last trimester of the
Last
book.
trimester.
So very excited.
I love it. I would love to hear how you even ended up on the path of becoming an REI.
It's a long story. So
Great.
Okay, perfect. I'll try not to take the entire time talking about it. I always wanted to be a doctor. That was something I always knew. I was a very shy, introverted, nerdy child, and I loved the body. And my grandfather was a psychiatrist, so saw him as a physician who loved his work. But I never knew what type of medicine I wanted to practice. And my goal was always just go to medical school. And I figured that something would just speak to me and spark me in medical school. But I loved everything. I loved it all. I loved the diagnostic challenge. I loved taking care of people. And due to advice saying, well, if you want to be a mom, it's really hard to be a mom in medicine. You should really consider something that doesn't have call, that has shift work. And I ended up going into emergency medicine for a year. I know. See,
What?
I know. Here's a little twist.
Okay.
So I ended up going into emergency medicine because I really did love that diagnostic puzzle. I loved having somebody sit across from me and tell me their symptoms and try to figure out what was going on with them. Really quickly, when I started my residency in the emergency room, I realized I was not like my peers because I wanted to know what happened. When you do emergency medicine, it's an incredible job. My colleagues who do it, props to them. And I loved everybody I worked with. But the ability to just feel really complete and fulfilled with what you do in that shift and then walk away, I obsessed over what happened. When I came back, I just wanted to know. And I realized that it was about me. I didn't get the personal satisfaction back that I needed as a physician. One of the things I was looking for was following somebody through that problem-specific journey. And ER was never going to give that to me. So I started to explore the path of leaving and went to my program director 3 months in and said, I made a mistake. This is not right for me. I don't know what to do. I didn't know what was the right thing. I didn't want to leave medicine. And everybody told me, don't tell him, find another program, do this on your own. But I was just very upfront because that's how I am. And he was really supportive, and we changed my schedule, and he had a lot of meetings with me and let me meet with different people in different fields. And I really quickly loved OBGYN. And in hindsight, the reason I didn't go into it was especially the female narrative from female physicians saying that this is not a good career path if you want to be a mother and want to be present because of the workload and the burden. But I really loved taking care of women. I loved the opportunity to follow them throughout problems and have that continuity of care. But also being in the ER, you call 100 consults. So your patient has this and you call a specialist, and your patient has that and you call a specialist. And that really struck in me. I want to be the exact expert on a smaller amount of things instead of having this broad general knowledge and then consulting the expert going
Like
down.
depth instead of range.
Exactly.
Basically.
Just said, I want to be the end all be all on this one specific thing. And going back to that diagnostic challenge and sitting across from somebody and talk about getting to walk with them through a journey. It's really what REI is.
Yeah.
So I really quickly said, I really think I'd like to do REI. It's highly competitive. There's only about 40 spots a year. I ended up doing research in residency. I would work my 12-hour shift and then go to a lab, and I grew out pituitary cells and
Doctors
we
are
tested
insane.
them. But my mentality, I've always said, I have to, things aren't just given to me. I've not been quote unquote lucky. I've worked really, really hard for things, but not everything has come my way. But I've always had the same mantra of, it's not going to be because I didn't try. Like, nobody's going to outwork me. And so when I said, I want to do this, I see myself as a fertility doctor. Like, what's it going to take? And what do I need to do to show up? Because if it's not meant to be, then that won't happen. But it's not going to be because I didn't know or I didn't educate or I didn't try.
Very similar to a fertility journey. You want to make sure you're empowered and you're making the decisions like you have all the options
100%.
and not that you didn't give 120% to try.
Right. At the end of the day, and that's what I tell my patients too, you want to walk this road knowing you did everything you could.
Exactly.
Right? Like we can't always control the outcome, but we want to have that peace of mind that we brought what we could to the table. Right. And a lot of that is knowledge and awareness and putting forth the effort that you can in the space that you can. So ironically, it is so similar to what patients go through all the time. But that's kind of been my approach was I'm going to do what it takes. And I was really lucky to match to fellowship. And it's so ironic now we sit here with the book and everything else and I've been on social media for 10 years. Is that wild?
Yeah.
I was a fellow when I started my social media account. And my youngest sister is 8 years younger than me. And I remember it came from a discussion with her where I was complaining that I sat across from brilliant, successful, accomplished women every single day in these hour-long appointments. And I was telling them really basic facts about their body and their fertility and how they kept saying, I wish I'd known this earlier. Why don't we learn this? Things that you and I are so familiar hearing. And that's really what propelled me onto social in such a weird way. I didn't even have an Instagram account, but my youngest sister said, gosh, I'm, in my 20s and I don't know that stuff. When do you learn it? Maybe you could trick people into caring about their fertility by, posting about your life as a fertility doctor and sneaking some fertility facts in.
Wow.
And that really started a journey that has changed, my trajectory of my career and hopefully has changed some other women's trajectory with their own fertility by giving them, knowledge and that opportunity to be an advocate because you can't advocate when you don't know.
Exactly. Did you do your fellowship in Texas?
I did not. My fellowship was at UNC, so in Chapel Hill.
Okay. You now are in Texas.
I am.
How did you end up going to Austin?
Married a Texas boy.
Okay. Were you concerned being in your field in Texas when you started?
Not at the time. That was 2016 is when we moved back to Texas. Wild.
What's wild about that is I'm like, oh, that was like 3 years ago. No, it wasn't.
So we've been there for 10 years. So I wasn't at the time. I think I really felt like IVF was having, a moment. More people were talking about it. There was a lot of stigma being broken online where people were shedding light to fertility doctors were even a thing. Right. At first when I would say I'm a fertility doctor, people would say, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. And now everybody knows what that means. Yeah. So I felt like it was a great opportunity and timeline for the field. I really wasn't worried about the political landscape, maybe in a really naive way. And that's changed immensely since I've been there.
Right. So 2016, I assume you moved before November of 2016, which is when the administration changed, which is when really things had flared up significantly. That's 10 years of flare up. Let's go back to you personally and then we'll move forward. Tell me, where were you I know you had your own fertility, I believe, and loss. Did you have some loss?
Yeah, I had recurrent pregnancy loss. I had 4 pregnancy losses before I had my kids.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
At what point, so where was this 2016 move to Austin for you personally in your fertility journey?
That's a great question. I'd already had my kids by then.
Okay.
So I had my pregnancy losses. We started trying in residency. So in residency, once I realized I was trying to go to this fellowship and training seemed non-ending, and then I'd be done with training and wanted to have a job, that there was no good time as a professional woman to have kids. Yeah. And we had been married, and I, as described, always wanted to be a mom. So I said, let's just start trying. There's never going to be a good time. We'll figure it out. And I had pregnancy loss after pregnancy loss to the point where, I heard the things that women hear in that circumstance, like, just relax. It's just bad luck. There's nothing you can do. I'm a controlling personality.
Yeah.
I'll just admit, that is my personality type. So I know that about myself. Mm-hmm. So I know I can't control everything. But the idea of sitting there saying, is it okay if I run? Well, what foods should I eat? Are there supplements that I should take? Do I need to take a baby aspirin? Do I need to do IVF? And I just kept hearing, it doesn't matter. Keep trying or do IVF. Those are your options.
Were you in North Carolina at this point?
I was spanning from being in Dallas, where I did my residency at Parkland. Okay. And then we were transitioning. By the time I got to fellowship, I'd already had 3 losses.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you. And then my 4th was an ectopic pregnancy. One of my nurses in fellowship administered methotrexate the first day she met me.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, it was devastating. Yeah. And I can sit here now and not cry about it, hopefully.
Of course. Yeah.
But it was also professionally devastating because I really felt like if I couldn't get myself pregnant, How was I going to help other women?
What a pressure to put on yourself.
Well, it was so unexpected as well.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about that. And then when I found myself in that position, sitting across from women, trying to figure out what's going on with them, really had this, well, what's going on with me?
Yeah.
Why can't I get pregnant? The irony of the world is I was told IVF was the next step, nothing you can do. I was the clinical fellow, though. Fellowship's so weird, but you do a year and a half of research and a year and a half of clinical time. It's 3 years, and that's after a 4-year OBGYN residency. And that was my time to learn IVF and to learn how to be a clinical fellow. So I was told at the end of that year, it would be a good time for me to personally go through IVF. I was so okay with that, though, because
of course.
I've given everything.
And also because you're controlling, and you're like, oh, well, that gives me a sense of control and timeline, and it's going to work then, and then it's going to, right?
Like, great, that's what we'll do.
Perfect. And 9 months later, we'll have.
Yeah, so, okay, fine. I can get on board with that plan. When you say it out loud, it sounds kind of crazy, but.
Now.
I was like, okay, I'll get on board with that plan, but what should I do in the meantime? And heard the same narrative that there's nothing you can do that will change this outcome. And I decided, well, I'm not going to accept that, and really started my own N of 1 experiment. Essentially, this whole conversation is going to be one question. And
I love it.
One thing is that most fellows, you have to do a research project and you have to write a thesis and get it published and sit during your oral boards and defend it. And most people do a lab project. Like I talked about in residency, the pituitary cells. Many people do an IVF project because you can control more variables. And I was like, hard pass. I was going to study natural fertility. I wanted to try to get answers to the questions that I, as a woman, had. Why do some people have pregnancy loss? What about ovarian reserve, vitamin levels, environmental chemicals, the luteal phase? And so I went and said, I want to study natural fertility. And they said, well, it's not really what people do. And I came in as a nutrition major. I was a nutrition major from college. So I was like, no, I don't really believe that. So maybe I can study it and let's see what we find. And they said, well, you have to get a master's in clinical research so that you can understand clinical trials. I said, great, I'll get that. Let's do it. You
added that on?
Let's do that.
Oh, girl.
Let's do that. Sign me up. I want to know the things. And so I studied all those things. And that was really a turning point for me, personally and professionally, because I did see the word inflammation over and over in these different bodies of literature, right? We're talking about endocrine disrupting chemicals, we're talking about vitamin levels, we're talking about luteal phase that are short. And all this literature talks about one of the mechanisms being inflammation for how it's impacting fertility. Yet as a physician at the time, inflammation was only discussed as disease state. Like endometriosis causes inflammation, therefore it is bad.
Nothing in like a preventative
Nothing
context.
Saying like inflammation is precedes having the disease state and how impactful that can be. So I started saying, what are the symptoms of inflammation? Gosh, I have a lot of them. What can I do to control these? And I changed how we ate. I threw out everything from our kitchen. We kind of changed how our workout plan and all these things we were doing. And it wasn't with the idea like I'm going to get pregnant right now. But I said, well, maybe I can have a higher chance of getting pregnant with IVF. Because even with IVF, we only work with the eggs and sperm somebody gives us. So surely these
still
things,
want them to be the best of the best.
Surely these things matter, despite the fact that, at that time everybody said it didn't matter. And I was tracking my cycle. We weren't, realized my luteal phase was a little short, which, there's this whole, luteal phase doesn't matter. There's a little, narrative that you'll hear from medicine. And luckily the people who trained with me actually didn't believe that. Really, I was trained that the short luteal phase is the first sign of ovulatory dysfunction. So I said, why don't you try some Clomid? You're doing all these healthy things while you're waiting to do IVF. Anyways, long story, I got pregnant and stayed pregnant. And I did cut out gluten from my diet because I felt inflamed when I ate gluten. It was one of many things going from more of a standard American to a Whole Foods, more plant-based diet at the time. And got pregnant, stayed pregnant with my kids. And 10 years later, I got diagnosed with celiac disease. So certainly, which is, intolerance to gluten. It's an allergy to gluten. And despite having all this testing done and, having a variety of vague, dismissed symptoms, was never diagnosed with it then.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that absolutely can cause recurrent pregnancy loss. So in the roundabout way, understanding the importance of data and science. I'm an evidence-based girly, right? I've got a master's in clinical research. I've done a fellowship. Like, I love evidence. I also respect the fact that just because something hasn't had a perfect study done doesn't mean that it's not impactful. And when
Say that again.
Yeah.
Because that's me in a nutshell. Say it again.
Just because there hasn't been the perfect study done doesn't mean that something's not impactful.
Yeah.
Right? We're all our own N of 1 experiments.
Yeah.
And learning to listen to your body, to know what's normal for you so you can know what's abnormal for you, that's the key to advocating for your own health and really what we should be trying to help women achieve.
The way you just said that too, because I often ask, like, how do we get better at this? How do we train our daughters to start tracking these things? That's the part of sex ed that needs to come out. Be in tune with your body.
Yes.
That is not taught really ever.
No,
Not
no.
on like a clinical teacher level.
On any level.
Yeah.
And it's one thing as I've been talking to more women talking about the book, I say, when did you learn how to track your cycle? When did you learn?
When I wasn't getting pregnant.
When you weren't getting pregnant.
Yeah.
Which is wild, right?
Yeah.
We should learn that well before. We cycle for many, many years before
And
we
I was
want
on
to
the
get
pill
pregnant.
for so many years. I was like, I don't
100%.
have to think about it. I don't have to worry about it. I'm on track because I get it every month and that must mean everything's fine.
Right. There's this disillusion.
Yeah.
It's not that the pill is harmful, but it's just you lose the opportunity during a key time of your life to learn what your baseline of normal is or investigate those red flags that your body might be giving you that something is not normal.
Right. Right. It's crazy. Okay. So back to you. You did Clomid for that. Did you do Clomid for that round that you got
I did
pregnant?
Clomid for my daughter.
Okay.
And was such a pessimistic person. So like,
Yeah.
this is going to be pregnancy loss number 5.
Yeah, of course. I mean, how do you not after 4?
You know, it was
It's very hard. It's hard to imagine any different outcome.
I know. Infertility steals so much from you.
Yeah.
One of the worst things that it steals, in addition to, you know, your timeline and the family you want, and often a smaller family size, is the naiveness of joy
Yeah.
that can occur in pregnancy because you're waiting for that shoe to drop out
Constant.
because that's what happened to you before. And that's truly the space I lived in for most of my first pregnancy.
Okay.
You know, I had a friend who was a photographer who said, finally, like, please, let's get maternity photos. I just didn't want to do
never did
it.
them
You know,
either.
I didn't want to document a pregnancy that wasn't going to result in a baby. And I ended up doing them a week before she was born.
Wow.
Finally said, okay, let's just do them. And I just remember holding her just sobbing. You know, it's like such a journey that never leaves you.
It's very unbelievable until the babies are in your hand. I found, at least for me. I also wasn't able to do a maternity shoot, and I'm jealous that you ultimately did it a week before because I still couldn't. And I have twins, and that was my only pregnancy, so my only successful pregnancy. And I wish now that I would have done it. So I'm glad that you did.
Thank you. I mean, I had to get pressured into it because I was very much like, no.
Yeah.
I don't want to film document this in case something goes wrong.
Totally.
I have so few pictures of me pregnant during that pregnancy. And I know it's not an isolated experience, but you see women who don't go through infertility, and I'm jealous of the experience they have and how
to be able to announce it and surprise
and just
people.
how happy they feel in their pregnancy. And like I said, that naiveness that it's going to be just wonderful because I just kept waiting for it to be wonderful
for that shoe to drop.
Yeah, it was terrible to go through. It changed my whole career though. You know, I approached every single patient different.
Yeah.
You know, I knew what it felt like to be told there's nothing you can do. And even now I don't sit here and act like you can control everything, but I always say, yeah, there's absolutely things you can do. Like you should do what you can.
Yeah.
You know, you bring to the table your best. I'm going to bring to the table my best. We're going to leave this journey knowing we did everything possible.
Exactly.
And that is the mental space that I want to help more women achieve when we're trying to achieve goals.
Yeah. Okay. To that end.
Yeah.
Did you ever end up having to do IVF?
I didn't.
Amazing. Okay. How did you handle Clomid?
I was fine.
Okay.
I mean,
I was
don't
one of those
know.
people that was
You
deeply
hate-
affected. Like I didn't
Really?
know what was going on. I wanted to punch everyone and cry and sweat like that for a week. And I'm like, oh, that's the one thing that's different in my life. It's the Clomid.
Abby, I think I was neutral, meaning the emotional roller coaster of pregnancy loss over and over. And methotrexate was the worst thing at that
I
time.
had to do it as well.
Yeah, I felt like I got hit by a truck.
Yeah.
That after that, I was like, I'm not saying I didn't feel bad, but I was just like, whatever.
Right. You're like,
bring
just
it
do
on.
what I need to do.
You know, bring it on. I felt a little emotionally numb to it, taking care of other people trying to grow their family and struggling with it myself at that same timeline when I was doing that.
So how did you psych yourself up to potentially go for a second child?
You know, I always wanted a bigger family. I always say we might have had more kids had my experience been different. I mean, probably we would have. I come from a family of 3. I didn't know if I had it in me to go for a second child, to be honest. My kids are really close in age. I was still in that mindset, like after I had the baby, of learning to listen to my body and inflammation and postpartum. We could have a whole talk on postpartum.
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole talk, and I didn't have much time off. I had to go back to work.
Yes.
I had a little baby. I felt terrible. So I was like, I'm going to do this inflammation thing again. Like I don't feel normal. Obviously, there's this postpartum hormonal change. So I'm going to really kind of control some of these other aspects that I can to see if it helps this. And we just got pregnant with him. They're 15 months apart.
Amazing.
I was like, I'm not going to go back on birth control. Right? It took me 4 pregnancy losses to get here.
Right.
I'm gearing up for this to be years and years if we're going to do it. So I'm not going to go back on the pill.
Yeah.
I know I won't get pregnant.
Right.
I won't stay pregnant, whatever. And we did. And it was wild. But I honestly believe I wasn't eating gluten at the time. I was really prioritizing building muscle over long runs, cultivating a different life to the best that I could in training. And it was such a different experience than when I got pregnant with my daughter.
Incredible. Okay. And so where are we in the Fora fertility timeline at this point? After you have both of your kids?
So I had both of my kids.
And tell everybody what Fora fertility is.
I will. So Fora fertility is our fertility practice in Austin. It's a boutique fertility clinic. There's just 2 physicians, myself and Amanda Skellern. And I didn't move to Austin to start a fertility clinic. I would have told you in 2016 that I was not an entrepreneur.
That's what I want to talk about.
That's so funny.
That's a whole nother full experience and set of hurdles. And on top of you're helping people in the hurdles of building their family, it's like, I love this. It's like you're an excavator. You're like, I'm going to just demolish every hurdle that's in the way on the entrepreneur side and on the medical side.
I love you. I just really learned that time is precious, and if something doesn't serve me, I don't need to stay there. I'm not afraid to quit or to bet on myself. And I don't mean
such a good lesson.
Quit in a bad way, but just say the example of changing from ER to OB. I sat there and I saw what was going to happen. I would burn out from this. I wasn't getting what I needed. This wouldn't be the fulfilling career I wanted. And I wanted more than that. I felt like I deserved to give myself the opportunity for more. When I left fellowship in 2016, the options to be a fertility doctor were to be in academic medicine or to join a huge conglomerate practice for the most part. There were a few physician practices that existed. For a multitude of reasons, I didn't love the big conglomerate practice. I really thought I'd be in academics. And my husband really wanted to move back to Texas. And I was like, well, we'll see if there's a job there. There's only a handful of private practices, but I can give it a try. You can always go back to academics. And I joined a private practice that was part of a conglomerate network. And we'll just say it was not for me. It was not for me. I wanted more control, shocking, over how I took care of patients. And
you're consistent, if nothing else.
If nothing else, I know who I am at this point.
Yes.
And, I left that practice into 2018. In 2019, I joined another local private practice in town with a better contract and more provisions for what I could control. And it sold to a private equity group within months. Even though I was promised and told that it wouldn't.
Of course.
You're just an employee, you have no control. And I knew that wouldn't be the end of my career journey. But at the moment, I had hundreds of patients just move embryos across town and follow me. Felt like, okay, I've got to figure out, but these practices have different goals than I do. COVID happened, and I remember, May 1st of 2020, Amanda Skiller and I were the 2 primary physicians at this practice. There were a couple others, but she and I saw probably 90% of the patients. And so we were talking every day during COVID. IVF shut down. We were saying, what are we going to do? How are we going to advocate for our patients? And for lack of a better description, it became apparently obvious that if we wanted to practice medicine the way that we thought our patients deserved it, we had to be the ones in control. So we put in our notice May 1st of 2020, open for July 1st.
Oh my God. Still deep COVID time.
Oh, IVF was not happening.
Right.
We said, but there's no time like the present. People aren't cycling. When are you ever going to get a natural break and cycles? Tell patients, okay, while you're waiting, we're going to set up shop across town.
And at this point, how was your social media following?
It had grown to the point where I felt it's so interesting because I never started a social media to bring patients to me.
Right.
It was I want to help all the patients I can't see.
Right.
But I can only sit across from so many women each day. Hopefully this will help reach those people who can't come in. But at that point, I probably had about 100,000 followers on Instagram, which is crazy. And I had started the podcast and it was doing really well. And I realized all these things they put in contracts to try to persuade doctors not to leave. And one of them is called a non-solicit, where you can't bring your patients with you. Yeah. I was like, I don't have to solicit. They know how to find me.
Right.
And that gave me a lot of power and freedom. And there's a whole journey when it comes to being, a physician or just an entrepreneur in general, about owning your name, your internet space, how people can find you easily and not having that tied to somebody else. But that gave us a lot of confidence in saying, we can do this. And I remember, maybe this makes me a bad wife. I remember quitting.
Nothing, no judgments.
That's okay. Well, I remember quitting, and Amanda and I said, give us X, Y, Z, or we're going to leave. And we're like, okay, fine, we're going to leave. And then I remember walking in to my husband and being like, hey, Jason, Amanda and I just quit. We're going to open our own practice. And he looks at me. He's like, there's a pandemic. I was like, yes. He's like, I just want to make sure you're aware. You're not doing IVF right now. I said, I know. He goes, so you're going to open an IVF clinic in a time where there's no IVF and we don't know what the future looks like. We thought it was, the middle of COVID. It was the beginning of COVID.
We didn't know.
Little did we know. And I said, yeah. And he goes, if there's anybody I'd bet on, it's you and Amanda.
Aww.
Right? So if you want to...
Best husband.
I mean, if you want to...
Good job, Jason.
Yeah. He's like, if this is what you want to do, do it. You've worked hard to get to this point. Take care of patients the way you want to take care of them. And it's been a beautiful journey. It's hard. Yeah. There's so many lessons to learn.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an operations person, or do you guys handle all of that?
I mean, it's mostly us. I mean, we do have an office manager, but we started the practice, the two of us. We said Amanda's back of house and I was front of house, and 2 nurses. And that's how we opened the door. Wow. And, we've grown since then, and we have our own beautiful lab, and we have a huge team. We still are very limited. We don't do all the cycles that we could. We don't see all the patients we could. We could make more money. But the goal of that practice is to take care of women in the way we deserve. To be able to hear what is going on, provide them an experience in a space where they feel comfortable, where they know they're not a number, but where you can have, you can be that N of 1 experiment. We can take the bulk of the science that we know, we can apply it and see what happens, and then we can adjust and make changes and work together to get to that outcome.
Which actually reminds me, I haven't read the study yet, but that study came out, I think, pretty recently, saying that the evidence of changing protocols does not actually result in more live births than keeping the protocol the same. Am I right?
You're right. This was a study looking at just keeping the same protocol and doing
it over and over.
We're talking about embryo transfers.
And I, as somebody who did 8 transfers, for me, the only solace I had was knowing we were going to change something as the control freak, right? You're like, if it didn't work this way, we have to be able to...
What's the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing over and over. And that's what it feels like to me. So I'm curious, you're the first doctor I've had in since I've heard about this study. From a clinical perspective, do you agree? How do you handle your boutique? So every person gets a bespoke plan, which is great. But theoretically, bigger statistically, when it's not working, do you prefer to switch things a lot, move a lot of variables? Do you prefer to change only a little bit at a time? Or mostly to keep things the same?
No, that's a really great question. And it does have to be personalized. Here's what I think. What that study tells me is that for the bulk of people, if you do enough transfers, if you have enough embryos, you will have success.
Which I feel like is true for any version of this study,
it
right?
Is, right?
If money and body and physical, emotional tapping is unlimited, then you can get pregnant no matter what.
And that's what many studies show us, is that at some point, if we have enough euploid embryos, we keep going. The majority of people should have success. It takes out the consideration of what happens to you at embryo transfer number 8 versus embryo transfer number 1.
Yeah.
It takes out that many people are living a different life. And I wish we could do that before transfer 1. We are getting more into the what can I control. And I find that many of my patients who are in their higher order of transfers, protocol aside, are, eating different, cultivating a different life, doing different things than maybe they were at transfer 1 when they just assumed everything would work. So we know but it's a balance. A single euploid embryo has a 65% chance of success. After 2 transfers, we're at about 85%. So a huge jump.
Wow.
Does that mean we have to change things between 1 and 2? Not always. However, if 93% of people will be pregnant after 3 transfers and you're not, I'm always changing something. I think we have to, I call this the WTF appointment. We have to get into the habit of evaluating what was good, what was bad, and what do we do again. And we use not just the literature, although I love it, but your personal experience. So what I might do if I think somebody has endometriosis or autoimmune disease, if they have a history of a thin lining, multiple uterine procedures, PCOS, there might be a direction that's pushing us in. So we'll use endometriosis. We know that in general, women with endometriosis tend to have more inflammation, and embryo transfer protocols that have some Lupron on board tend to do a little bit better. So there's a variety of ways that we can use Lupron, though. We can use it for 30 days. We can use it intramuscularly for 2 months or 3 months. We can use it in addition to letrozole. So there's a lot that can go into the picture that can still be fine tweaking the protocol, even if I'm not changing to a modified natural cycle. And I might be less likely to want to switch completely to a natural cycle, and somebody who has a reason why I think, like this example, Lupron would be beneficial. Or if you have a chronically thin lining and we might need gonadotropins to get it thick enough, we may not see the response we want to synthetic estrogen. It might not make sense for us. But that doesn't mean that there's no changes at all. Always little tweaks, always little add-ons. I'm probably more liberal than others in the camp of, if there's evidence that it doesn't hurt you and it could help you,
you're willing.
Then I want you to have the opportunity to decide. I think that's different than there's no evidence at all and potentially could be harmful.
Right.
The problem we sit at in such an interesting sector of the fertility space right now is the money being put into the field by tech and industry, which is ultimately good. We want to advance tech. We want to advance opportunity for higher success rates. But that gets rolled out to the consumer. Clinics sometimes stand to make money off of it themselves. And it may not always be in the best interest of the patient. That's a really hard place to say, just because this test exists, should we do it?
Right.
But I also don't believe that I should be the person limiting your ability to find out data about yourself. And in medicine right now, there are a lot of people who will say, well, that test isn't indicated, or I don't check those hormone levels, or that's not my job. And I think if I tell you, hey, there's limited evidence on what we do with this, right? But maybe it would sway us one way or another, or maybe there would be something we could do, or maybe you would decide to delay your IVF cycle for, an extra month or so while we work on XYZ problem. If you know what we may or may not do with that information, if you know how expensive it is and the limitations, that's called shared decision making. And that's where we should live in medicine. And as physicians, I strongly believe we should be encouraging that discussion instead of saying, oh, it's your Google doctor degree or ChatGPT. I welcome Google and ChatGPT.
Which is the sign of a great doctor.
Like,
I mean, come on.
Do your research. I love it. Have a list of questions. I get excited for that.
Yeah.
I also tell my patients, hopefully once we are in a relationship, I am your new Google and you ask me first, right? And I can probably in 2 minutes tell you something that you would spend 2 hours on an internet deep dive.
Yes.
And hopefully the book will do that for more people.
Perfect segue after this. After we close, I'm like, the book.
So, but I think that is the thing. Too often, this field, when I entered it, was very paternalistic. And there's a lot of physicians who got to practice by just saying, Abby, you need to do IVF. And I didn't have to tell you what a protocol was, how it helped, what the different types were, or what we were going to do. And you just got to walk that road. And unfortunately, there's some people who still practice that way. And if you're a patient and that's what you want, maybe all the choices feel like too much, then there's doctors like that. But I find that being a woman who walked the road myself, that was the opposite of what I wanted. And I wanted to feel like I knew what was happening. And that's what I tell my patients. We can't control every outcome, but you should have the data to make the decisions you need to. You should be able to cultivate a life outside that you feel really confident. You don't have to worry, is this right or wrong? Because you feel like you've got that good foundation, and that you've got the knowledge to know why we're doing this. You know what our next steps are. I never want you to question if what am I going to do next? Or why are we doing that?
Yeah.
That is information you deserve to know if you are walking this journey.
Which I think finally IVF patients are starting to understand. Let's move to your book. Speaking of IVF patients understanding, ta-da! The Fertility Formula is coming out in April. We're going to, of course, link out to everywhere.
Thank you.
How long have you known you were going to do this book?
In 2018, I always wanted to write a book. I just always wanted to. I told you my grandfather was a doctor, and he wrote a lot of books as a psychiatrist, and they really were quite impactful. So I similarly had that desire, wow, maybe this could help people. A 1-minute Instagram video can only teach you so much, and fertility compounds on itself. In 2018, I had a literary agent reach out saying, do you want to write a book? Absolutely. I wrote a whole book proposal for this book, and she took it out, and no publisher wanted to meet about it.
Wow.
I was told in 2019 that there was no market for a fertility book. Women didn't want to talk about a subject so depressing.
Wow.
And it got shelved. So I was devastated.
Yes.
But it really felt counter to what I was experiencing every day. So I didn't really believe that people were listening to the podcast and following me on Instagram and coming to my clinic saying that that YouTube video was helpful, but nobody wanted this information.
Right.
But I met with other literary agents over years and got told the same thing. Wow. To the point where it was the end of 2023, and a friend of mine, Karen Tang, who's a gynecologist online, and she had written a book, and she said, what's happening with your book? Because she knew that I had been through this journey. And I said, nobody wants it. I've shelved it. I keep working on it, but I don't want to self-publish it. I really wanted to traditionally publish it. Like, if it was going to be in the world,
I understand that.
I wanted it to be able to have its moment.
And to feel supported, like we believe that this needs to be
exactly
out in the world.
So she had me meet with her literary agent, who is lovely. Mia Vitale's lovely. And I was probably a little bit of a bee because I'd met with so many people. And I got on this call. I said, Mia, I'm going to send you my proposal. I'm going to give you my 5-minute pitch. And if it's not for you, it's totally fine. But I don't want to spend months going back and forth with you, only then for you to say you don't think there's a place for this. Because I'm not going to change the scope of the book. The book is going to be about understanding your body, what you can control, how you advocate for yourself, and how your lifestyle can impact your fertility. So I gave her my pitch. I sent her my proposal, signed with her the next month, and she sold the book 4 months later.
Mia, we love you, Mia.
I mean, so just she said, I think these other people are crazy.
Yeah.
And let's go for it.
They are crazy, for the record.
I mean, everybody said nobody will buy people are looking at markets, these other things. And I said, but in the perfect world, I'd love to reach somebody. Of course, the book will help you if you're in the trenches, okay? If I was in the trenches, this book would help me know how to advocate, know how to control those other factors. There's huge parts on IVF and protocol types. It would help me when I was just trying to get pregnant, asking, when am I ovulating? When should we have sex? Is my luteal phase normal? Like knowing all those random questions. But also in the perfect world, this would help when I was younger, sitting there trying to say, I want kids one day, but not yet. What should I do? Should I stay on my pill? Should I not? Is my body normal? What timeline makes sense for me? So to me, I didn't believe there was no market. I believe there's multiple markets for it. Yeah. And luckily, with a great team at Penguin that believes that too, I'm shocked that it takes 2 years from a book deal to get the book. Well, that's what they wanted. They wanted 2 full years from when we had the book deal to the book coming out.
Which again, back to the infertility model, everything takes longer than you want it to.
Everything does.
It's crazy.
And I have no problem nowadays asking for what I want or trying to like push the world into my direction. Right. And I have been like, can it be earlier? I mean, the book has been written. Can't it be earlier? They're like, April's the perfect time. So at this point, we're in, the third trimester.
You got to surrender. You're in the third trimester.
I know. We're going for it. But it's been so incredible, I do have to say, to see support from the fertility community. I still remember in 2019, I got an award from Resolve, one of their Hope Awards for social awareness. And I remember sitting next to the then president of ASRM at the table. And he said, who are you? What are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm Natalie. I'm getting this award. He's like, doctors shouldn't be on social media. I can't believe that they're acknowledging this. That's, really had a very old school approach. And the fertility community and women who've walked the road before have supported me the whole time.
Yeah.
And to see them show up, I'm going to cry. To see them show up as I've poured so much into this book and this community, how everybody's embraced it and they're so excited for it. It is so validating for something you got told no for over and over, and to truly believe that it hopefully can help so many people.
It 100% is going to help so many people. Good for you. I love to do a little bit of rapid fire.
Let's do it.
I'll do some medical, some personal. Okay. I was talking to our shared friend, Lana Manikowski, who I was like, oh, I'm going to do some rapid fires. And she was like, ask her. So this is what I'm going to start with. Cowboy boots or heels?
Cowboy boots.
I said, she's so tall. It's going to be cowboy boots anyway.
And I'm just old now, right? I turned 44 this month. I am at a, I mean, but let's be for real.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm at a place where cowboy boots are so much more comfortable. They can elevate any outfit.
I love it. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Iced or hot?
Hot.
Beach or mountain?
Beach.
Botox during stims?
Yes, but not embryo transfer and on.
Okay, so like literally while you're taking the shots for stims, go for it.
Get that last dose in.
I love it. GLP-1s, that's not really rapid fire, but like overall feeling.
Huge fan. They decrease inflammation. I'm seeing benefits in off-label use for a lot of our inflammatory diseases.
And how long would you be on a GLP-1 before going forward with the protocol?
The medical recommendations to be off a GLP-1 2 months before you get pregnant or have an embryo transfer, and you have to come off it 2 weeks before anesthesia. But I will have patients on it while we are, in the prep up to, and then stopping it when we start stem.
Amazing.
Especially for those with known autoimmune or chronic inflammatory diseases, seeing a big benefit here, especially.
Great.
There's not a study on this, but that doesn't mean that clinically we're not seeing a benefit. And that's where we have to live in today's world of how do I help the patient sitting across from me right now?
I love that. Okay, last rapid fire, which seems the most important. At what point, ideal point in a woman's life, should she pick up your book?
Oh, I mean, in my perfect world, you would get this book in your mid-20s, and then you would learn the basics, the section 1, ovarian reserve, about your period, have some big picture concepts to guide you, and then reference it back when you're ready to get pregnant, or if you are in the camp of infertility that we are all too familiar with. But your eggs are in your body your whole life. The sooner you can learn information, the sooner you're going to be able to start making change. But in the same breath, it's not too late. Yeah. Hormonal health, fertility is a health marker. Obviously, as we enter our perimenopause years, our hormone health gets a newfound attention. And even when I'm sitting across from my friends who are menopause experts, the foundational lifestyle principles that decrease inflammation improve your hormonal health at all life stages. So I really think you can pick it up at any time. Okay. And
so I don't need to get it for my daughter for her 16th birthday, but maybe her 21st.
Exactly. Okay. Like you're graduating college. Here's a book, and maybe freeze your eggs someday if you can.
She will definitely be freezing her eggs.
I think all of us who've been through it.
Yes, we're like, the minute you can, you will.
Exactly.
Dr. Natalie Crawford, thank you so much for being here.
Abby, thank you so much for having me.
You're the best.